Okay, coming to you live from the Khetarama or the Premadasa Stadium as you know it. Of course, Khetarama is the old name. This is the stadium compound. Right next to me is the playing ground, and this is where we witnessed one of the biggest upsets of this tournament so far, and that is Zimbabwe beating Australia by a healthy margin of 23 runs. And as I said, I witnessed that game having taken place right here. Of course, now is evening time. That was a day game. But what are the lessons that Indian team can take from that particular encounter? That's something that I'm going to discuss. That is something that I'm going to share with you, having seen that game and picked up a few pointers from there. The first thing that you notice is what was Australia thinking? They won the toss and decided that they'll chase. Now I know in T20 cricket that's become a norm, that's become the go-to thing, that chasing is the right way to go, but not here and not when you're playing a day game. So surprising first that Australia would decide to chase. The other big shocker, 3 games have happened at the Premadasa Stadium so far in this tournament, and all 3 games have been won by team that batted first. And those 3 games have been played at different times. So it's not just day games that I'm talking about where you'll say that batting first is an advantage, even the later game. So the Sri Lanka game that happened against Ireland was a night game. Sri Lanka batted first, they won. Then you had a mid game, the afternoon game, Australia-Ireland, Australia batted first, they won. And then you had a morning game, the early start game, Australia-Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe batted first, they won. So all 3 games that have been played so far on this ground, team that is batted first has won. And 2 reasons that I can attach to it are, one, that because this has not been a high scoring sort of a pitch, it's a bit of a sticky pitch, it's a bit on the slower side, doesn't make it very easy for stroke making. So as the innings progresses, the pitch tends to get a bit slower, and so that's why chasing a total is tough, and so that is why very surprising that Australia, when they won the toss, decided to chase and not bat first. And that's probably the reason, one, that the pitch is slowing down, is that teams that are batting first are winning. And the second reason I think that's happening, predominantly most teams chasing in T20 cricket win because they are mostly night games, and by the time the second innings comes along, there is a lot of dew and bowling becomes very tough and batting becomes much easier. I can report from here, having been noticing, it is close to 8 now, 8 at night here, and by this time dew usually sets in if it is supposed to be. But I'm happy to report that I just went to the ground, the playing surface, I touched it, there has been zilch, there has been no dew so far. So that again, that advantage that you have of batting second also then goes out. So no dew, and I think these are things that the Indian team should keep in mind when they are playing against Pakistan here. 2 other things that they need to watch out for, and because of the playing conditions that you have, one I think will be a question mark over spinners, how many spinners you should play, and second will be the batting approach, and I'll try and address both. Let's start with the batting approach. I think the Indian team have excelled in their style of play, which is attack from the word go, and that has been the secret mantra why they've done so well in T20 cricket, and it served them very well. I was also of the opinion when they were playing in India after a bit of a hiccup versus USA that even against Namibia you continue, but the conditions there would be different. Pitches in India slightly better to bat on, and you can still continue to maintain the momentum, even though I think now the pitches you're getting in India, there also you have to slightly readjust your batting approach, but here even more so. So I think what the Indian team needs to take into account is that power play is crucial. That's the time where the ball really comes onto the bat. You got to maximize it, be as aggressive as possible in the power play. So attack, I think that's exactly what they should be looking to do as far as their batting approach is concerned. That secondly, don't continue with that aggressive momentum going forward. That middle phase, you need to consolidate. You need to consolidate, one, because you've got big boundaries here in Premadasa, especially I believe this game will be played in the center strip, so big boundaries on both sides, and then when spinners are operating, if you try to take them on, you can hold down in the end. So I think you see with the Zimbabwe team as well, they started off very well, hadn't lost too many wickets, but had a bit of a lull or a consolidation period in the middle and then accelerate towards the end. You need to hold wickets for that. It's slightly different to the approach that India has been having in T20 cricket. So slight tweaking of that approach is needed. A power play, go full out, 200 strike rate, that should be the aim, each batter. Then consolidate a bit, keep wickets in hand, and then towards the end have those wickets and accelerate towards the end to get to a par total. I think anything above 185 is very good. 185 will be par, 200 will be very good. You could even challenge at 170, I think, Indian team. And if India are to bat first, I think they have the bowling also then to be challenging the opposition. So slight change in India's batting approach that I would like the Indian team to do. And then there is a lot of talk about spinners. And I know in certain games spinners have done well, in other games spinners haven't. Like the first game, Ireland, Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan spinners were very good. But I think that was also primarily down to the opposition. Ireland usually struggle against spin, are very good against fast bowlers. So Sri Lankan spinners picked up a lot of wickets. But see the Zimbabwe game, Zimbabwe and Australia game, the spinners weren't that outstanding. The two best bowlers for Zimbabwe were their fast bowlers or medium pacers. Even for Australia, their spinners in Kuhnemann and Zampa weren't that effective. So it's not necessary that spinners do well because of the slow nature of the pitch. I think if you have a fast bowler and if you can use your slower delivery well, I think that then becomes very crucial. And I think you have enough bowlers, and I'm sure Indian bowlers will look at it, that this is the ground to use a lot of your variation, a lot of your slower deliveries. Hardik does it very well. Shivam Dube, I saw in the last game, really deceiving the batter with those slower deliveries. You know, Bumrah can do it, Arshdeep can do it, if Arshdeep plays and not Kuldeep, whichever way you look at it. So I think there is no hard and fast rule that you have to have spinners. You could go with a similar bowling attack that you have, but the focus has to be taking the pace off, and I think that should also serve the Indian team well. So these are just some of the lessons that you can pick up from the games that have happened in Premadasa. I know a lot of people will talk about that, you know, Pakistan have been here in Colombo, India are traveling from Delhi. Yes, they have travelled, they haven't spent too much time in Colombo, but remember, even Pakistan are going to be playing their first game here in Premadasa. All their games that have come, the two games they played in Colombo were in SSC, slightly different conditions in SSC compared to Premadasa. So both teams go in there. And as far as tiredness is concerned, I think, you know, these Indian players, they play the IPL where you have to continuously, you know, play a night game, travel the next day, play a day after some time. It happens. And I think they're pretty used to that. As far as I said, India's approach, those tweaks that they have to make, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for the Indian team to make those tweaks. Why? Because you look back at that World Cup that they won 2024, you know, not the most ideal conditions for stroke play or getting, you know, very high totals, but they adjusted and did well there and won the tournament. Look at the Asia Cup. I was there in Dubai. Similar sort of conditions. They didn't bat in one certain way. Power play they would maximize, consolidate in the center and then accelerate towards the end. That served them well. So I think this Indian team knows those different gears. So they'll just have to change their gear a bit. And again, as I repeat, on paper, look like the far superior team when it comes to Pakistan. You guys let me know your thoughts as to how the Indian team should be preparing for this game and the lessons they may have picked up from that particular encounter that saw Zimbabwe take on Australia.